It looks like we're rolling here. Back in mid-September, another Off the Record on the Rocks with my good friend, Mr. Ancarino Lara. I have been pumping blinged out Labubu's. It is still in the chat. It is still in the narrative. People equating this fad, this meme, this collectible art to the rise and fall of non-fungible tokens and the speed with which Labubu's have entered just the zeitgeist of the moment. We've got a lot to get to. I think we left off there last week, coming off of a somber week with September 11th, covering all that we talked about with the murder of Charlie Kirk. All of that's still relevant here, but it does feel like markets are getting frothy. The Fed news sounds like their markets are already pricing in this rate cut. You're seeing more IPOs. I know we talked generally about Klarna IPO. There's a whole nother swath of them coming this week. People might start talking about initial coin offerings once again. What's your take here mid-September? A little bit of a different vibe as Trump flies over to the UK and maybe striking crypto deals?
Yeah, I mean, it's we talk about frothy, I think is a great term because it's a real mixed bag, man. I mean, it's a real mixed bag of key signals coming through the noise, and some of them are at odds with each other. I mean, some of them are almost contradictory signals. While the Fed rate cuts talks are interesting, and markets, you say, are pricing things in and people are optimistic, et cetera. But then out of the other side of, the news cycle, we got Google and Sundar Pichai, who is outside of the shadow now of the DOJ, having won their non-compete or anti-monopoly case with Chrome, and starting just to double down on new AI payment protocols and stable coins and all of the currencies that have zero to do with the Federal Reserve. And
grab a drink. It's time for another episode of Off the Record on the Rocks. Join Michael Toner and Ancarino Lara as we discuss the latest in all things Web3, AI, metaverse, and crypto. Tune out the noise and turn up the signal as we pour ourselves into the future. Better make mine a double.
Currencies that have zero to do with the Federal Reserve. And then, like you say, your Labubus, the Labubus, jewel encrusted Labubus. I want to talk a little bit about the speed with which you got up that, that retail site. But then by the other side of that cycle too, you have all those tried and true, staunch, stalwart powers that be, this time in the ad market, coming out and saying, Labubus, NFTs, oh, that's old news. That's like there's so much, here's the old news, here's the new news, but now we're like, here's the new news, here's the old news. It's just, the door is spinning faster than Scooby-Doo. I don't know who's coming and going.
Yeah, I mean, I like exactly what you're talking about. I think we can talk about it at the financial market level, all the way down to Labublings and this culture, this meme culture, and the speed of these meme cultures. And memes are, by definition, derivatives of something that has happened, right? It gets memeified. And when I think about derivatives, I think about Tether unveiling its USAT, its US regulated dollar-backed stablecoin. We've got USDT. We've got the Trump World Liberty Financials, USD1, USDC. All these derivatives are making up this memeified money that moves so fast you can't keep track of whose money it is. It all sounds like US dollars to me. And I think the same thing is true of culture and culture memes, and where Labubus and Labubling.com sits in that is my ability to see a trend, spot it, forget what the big IP makers, forget the big pop funk, Pokemon, name your big IP distributor, Disney, right? Forget them. You can 3D print these things, customize them, go to an AI coding app, code out an e-commerce store, integrate it into a Stripe payment system, accept USDC and stablecoin, and have it process this new memeified transaction using AI, blockchain, new technologies. Forget what the old guard said. I don't need to go license this IP from anybody. Permissionless comes to mind in what these new technologies. So I'll take it all the way from new stable coins all the way down to laboobling.com, custom blinged out Laboobos, 3D printed and shipped to your doorstep.
I mean, the memification, we talked about the news cycles being 24/7, right? Everyone said, well, social media and Twitter and all these new outlets create a cycle where news information can move faster than the traditional news cycle, which usually published in the morning and the afternoon on news websites, right? It's 24/7, 365. But the memification, the speed of meme is something that even breaks that. Because what you just described, and for our listeners, this is real. You can go to Laboobling, I'm supposed to spell it for you, LABUBLING, laboobling.com, and see what took hours to create and start selling with all these different payment systems. I mean, the payment systems for one second, when Tether unveiled USDT, with the T, with the two lines through it, the way that like the euro does, these different things, like talk about moving faster than the speed of memes. I think it moved faster than the iOS update keyboard because there wasn't even a character choice anywhere to even find the T with the two lines through it. Like you have to go to the advanced keyboards on desktop to find it. That just shows you how fast that it's moving. They're moving quicker than even the iOS can keep up to even talk about what you're talking about. And the idea that if you're going to be in the business of keeping up with this speed of memes, that yes, when you are Adweek and you come out with a bold article that says that NFTs and Laboobos are over. The article says that it's over. The fads that
proves the hype has become the product.
That's right. That's a great quote. The hype has become the product. But what it insinuates is that Adweek, of course, has zero interest in giving any credibility, any credence to the ability for the Off the Record on the Rocks founder, Michael Toner, to create a Laboobling website and start pumping it. Like, this is a new version of the hype. In some ways, what Adweek is missing is that it isn't, well, they're using the term hype, but that's an old ad man term, right? We're going to hype it up. We need we need it to go viral. We need an influencer. These are old ad man terms. What they really are trying to say is that the derivative is the product. The user generated content is the product. The alternate, as you said, sort of permissionless real world asset. That's the product. But all of those things I just named are kind of synonyms for the overarching umbrella of the ad man's word hype. Because if the audience is hyped about Laboobos, well, you better damn well believe that every kid during art class, there's at least a few of them who are drawing a Labooboo, the same way that there's a few drawing a Pokemon. There's derivative products that are being made, not necessarily to be sold, but they're being made for someone to collect, to own, to share, to flex. And the speed to use what used to be called create.xyz, for all our listeners, is now called anything.xyz. You can go in and we're talking text to full app, and with a prompt to app with a full e-commerce flow and without any real knowledge of code. I mean, this is new. This is the speed of meme in a way that advertising markets don't understand yet.
Even the change there, the name to anything.xyz, literally anything you can create. The idea is one thing, but the ability to execute it, and in this case, bring that idea to life in code using these IDEs, that is has been really the next generation of ChatGPT kind of led to, these things can code. Now I can natural language describe an application, or in this case, an e-commerce flow. I can give it my Stripe payment integration, or another key thing here, and this will get me back to Google and Coinbase announcement. But one thing I saw is going through the Base on-chain kit. So this is base.org. This is entire dev kit, their documentation on how to build, and made it all AI prompt ready. There are literally like copy and paste options to pull in the base building applications to create the sign-up flows or to create the on-chain wallet or have a user provision a wallet. These things have all been turned into components for the sole purpose of bringing them into AI agents so that you can now build at speed, at scale, on-chain apps, whether you call them that or not, the ability to bring an idea to life. And that leads me all the way back around to an announcement that caught my attention this week was Google releasing AI payments protocol that includes support for stablecoins. Partners include Coinbase. And what did we cover on the show here several weeks ago? Coinbase announcing its payment protocol X402 for on-chain payment acceptance, and not to be outdone, Google now partnering with Coinbase. That's an announcement you did not see during the last cycle. There was a lot of these big corporate announcements and partnerships, and I always talk about Amazon and Avalanche. This one, Google and Coinbase stablecoin integration. The time is now. This is where the idea of taking something, an idea and a concept, and bringing it all the way through to memes and commerce and culture and payments and who owns it and who wants to flex it and who wants to post it on their social media and say, I've got a one-of-a-kind blinged out Laboo bling. I don't care whether it's an NFT. I don't care whether it's on chain. I can prove it to you. Here's my digital receipt. Here it is on my social media for you to see. The behavior doesn't change. I think the online distribution and how it gets owned and the transaction around the meme is what's changing.
Yeah, and the audience that we're talking about, which is, it's time, it's high time to start talking about the true audience that is driving this innovation. And we have said this many, many times that if you want to know what the next hot thing is, if you want to know what's interesting, you need to go ask the kids. It starts with the generation who right now would be Gen Z. I don't think Gen Alpha has come into focus yet, right? They don't really have the financial wherewithal to, or maybe the autonomy yet, but Gen Z does. And the Gen Z culture is one that challenges the hierarchy. It challenges the stalwart companies. It doesn't care that Jerome Powell goes to Wyoming and comes back and starts teasing partial points. It doesn't, right? It doesn't care when the DOJ has a lawsuit against Google. They're like Chrome to the Chrome browser. What's Chrome browser? Is it, how do I look at my stuff on my phone? Like you look at stuff on your phone with a browser. My kids will say that. Gen Z will say that. When you talk about new types of platforms that Gen Z gravitates to, this is a good chance, I think, to bring up what was going on right now with Discord and how Discord, the decentralized chat, has entered the chat. I think you said at one point.
Well, exactly. Yeah. TikTok sort of exited the chat for a little while. Now we're going to come back around. We'll put a pin in that. But not to be outdone, Discord showing up here in the past week, even around the Charlie Kirk murder. And this idea that is at least being circulated around Discord was the back channel being used, right? So now it's being introduced to the American public in one way. Here
right,
it is,
as the dark corner of the internet.
Right, this dark web associated with radicalism and these chat forums. And it's that world of deep dark web, the dark web. But the juxtaposition as you started the show, this dark and evil, light and dark, good and evil, this juxtaposition. This is Gen Z protesters have chosen the next Nepal prime minister via vote on Discord. This is from 4 days ago from MSNBC. Nepal is in a period of turmoil after Prime Minister, the government banned 26 social media apps, including Instagram and Facebook. Gen Z took to the streets. The protests turned violent, and then the youth protesters basically went on to this decentralized social platform, Discord, and created their election election that they could prove who these voters were.
A derivative of a DAO.
And the platform in a weird way didn't matter other than they had the attention of the meme. Boom. And now they get to create that generation who doesn't care about Jerome Powell and what's in the news and Trump visiting other state leaders and red carpets and state dinners. But they're on Discord saying, no, this is our government. This is how we're going to vote, which is exactly what a lot of crypto projects did. They have roles. There's member roles, like inside of a game, right? Of who the admin is, who's got authority, who's been here the longest, who the OGs are, who are the representatives,
who can boot you off the server,
right? Exactly who the moderators are. There's a hierarchy, if you will, a social construct that now exists inside of Discord, and that blurring of digital reality with reality now becoming truly something we've talked about here on the show, which is with wallet integration tied to your identity on your phone that's scanning your optical retina scan. You could do real-time elections and validate them on the blockchain with full transparency of who voted, when, where they were, where they're a citizen, have they paid their taxes. It feels Big Brother-ish, but here it's being described to you of Discord, dark corner of the internet over here. And wait a second, Gen Z just solved one of the biggest challenges of democracy ever.
Well said.
Using Discord.
Yeah, well, I mean, and of course, Discord has the unfortunate name Discord, which other party puts it into a category by most, white-haired politicians as being probably someplace on the dark web. I mean, I saw Reddit getting dragged in there. Reddit boards are equally dark, apparently, and you can get radicalized in there. But the speed of meme, right? That TikTok was everything anyone cared about a year ago. Are the Chinese using this data? Are they spying? Are they need to split this off? There needs to be a U.S. entity created. We can't be ceding eyeball time and the potential for propaganda to the American youth, even though TikTok's not a solely American product. The American youth who might think these other things because of election cycles and misinformation. And don't you remember when the Russians were meddling? And don't you remember TikTok? We'll keep kicking the can down the road. We'll go meet with Xi Jinping. We'll go try to mend fences and or use it as a negotiating tactic. And then just in an instant, a different version of a Black Swan event, Discord becomes hashtag, don't forget Arab Spring, the thing that vaulted Twitter into the chat back in the day when that first was used, in Egypt. And now you have that you just said, when we're looking for those key signals, those indicators around the world where new technologies are actually being tried and tested and proven out outside of the US, is there a potential for this exact path to be available to us in 2028? I mean, clearly, if you're showing an entire country is able to do that and to do that bootstrapped, it gives, I think, an interesting baseline model to at least follow. And again, one that I think we should follow close, because I feel like Discord is going to be the kind of company that might right now seem like it's on the outs because of the current news rhetoric, but within the next week when we record, might suddenly be pulled back in because it's going to demonstrate it's yet another win in some other cultural war, Nepal just being the first. We see this ever changing landscape, and it moves so fast that, now I wonder if there'll even be another article about TikTok. There'll just be a spinoff and there'll be some random offices assigned and whatever, and we'll move on to the next thing, even though at the time it was the most important thing in the world.
The AP did just publish this yesterday. US and China reach a framework deal for ownership of TikTok, which I find also very interesting. That to me seems like and it sounds like it was, TikTok was being used as some sort of bargaining chip with Xi Jinping around tariffs or access or chips or other investment, and whatever it was being used for, well, sounds like it's coming to a resolution, and TikTok really hasn't gone anywhere and nothing has changed. And I do think that the behavior there inside of that particular social network being very reliant in a different way than other social networks on the algorithm, meaning you don't have to have a big audience. You don't have to be an influencer. You don't have to be this giant creator in order to share your derivative meme, to remix whatever piece of content is, make it funnier, have a take on it. literally repost it and reshare it and let the algorithm do the work. That behavior has not changed, will not change, even no matter what framework the US and China come together with. That is going to be the new norm. And I think you're going to see that show up in a la Discord and other social networks, which I've talked about here on the show, with Meta hedging its bets with Threads. And that is a very similar, if not the same narrative of how that social network is going to be positioned in the marketplace as a solution to allowing the users to own what they publish, to have it, to be able to own your friends, take your friends with you, these distributed, decentralized social networks where you can log in with your identity being verified and whatever's happening inside of the UI and UX. Well, it was AI generated anyway.
Well, and that actually is a great point and a great segue, because when we start to sift through this kind of fog and smoke that we hear and we see being put up, right? There's the good and the evil. There's the dark and the light. We hear the words, the dark corners of the internet, the dark web. I mean, these are words that were used to talk about cryptography back in the day. The hooded, shadowy coders. What are they doing? Well, they're making digital money. What's it for? For human trafficking, of course. And we need to block it. We need to block it. We need to stop it. That is sort of fading away to this new conversation, which is we need to come up with a framework to regulate or to agree to continue to keep these platforms running. Don't ever think, for our listeners, I mean, honestly, the idea that anybody in the United States government wants to shut down or ban a social network is just pure hot air, because this article really hit me hard, which is we talk about the SOCOM, the new SOCOM department that they've created that's called MISO, which is really funny. MISO, like as in a miso, sauced cod or baked fish, like it's delicious, right? It's MISO. What stands for the Military Information Support Organization, working with SOCOM, which is our special operations in the Pentagon. And there's a big move to use machine learning, to use LLMs, AI-powered bots who can create content. And let's not sugarcoat it. We're talking about propaganda to promote United States. Exactly. The military, the M in MISO, the M in military is going to stand for memes. They're saying we are going to weaponize memes. Yeah. We are weaponizing memes, and we are going to use it to influence foreign audiences. This is their words. We're going to suppress dissenting arguments, and we're going to influence foreign target audiences. The United States is going to use SOCOM and MISO to create memes with state-of-the-art. And they go on and list all of the different technologies that they're going to be enabling. I mean, we thought drones on the battlefield was some great advancement for keeping boots off the ground. They're now talking about figuring out how to 100% use weaponized information coming from the American government through all these platforms. So there's no scenario they want to shut one down. That means you're just turning off the listening and the ears and the eyes of a whole segment of people you're trying to target and influence. And the more we know, like the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is not about to seed some percentage of influencers off of some social network. They look at the whole of their influence on the internet. The United States is looking at the whole of its influence as it pertains to its own citizens and to the people around the world, looking at charts to see on this network, how on Threads, how many American citizens, how many Indian citizens, how many Chinese people, how many Russians, how many on down the line, and start to look at that target mapping the same way in the old days. You would draw up your war games map of the globe, show your ICBM locations for your missile silos, plot your distances with your little protractors and calipers, and talk about how many minutes we'll have to send up the what do they call that stuff, the chaff or whatever, to intercept the missiles. Like now it's much simpler. We need targeted messaging. We need memes. And the memes are going to very quickly, a single image, a little Pepe the Frog crying, and your foreign minister like tripping down the stairs. Done. Push that out. Go. This guy's over. We need a vote.
Yeah, I mean, this was from The Intercept. This is Sam Biddle, the Pentagon document that basically showed the U.S. wants to suppress dissenting arguments, quote, using propaganda, using AI propaganda specifically, as it calls out that SOCOM hopes to purchase within the next 5 years, state-of-the-art technology, which is providing a capability leveraging agentic AI or multi-LLM agent systems with specialized roles to, quote, increase the scale of influence operations. That to me means that the AI agents that we talk about, they will be likely controlled on chain so that their provenance and authenticity is at least known to the origin source. And whether they are humans or bots, and the truth layer to you and I, we will not know. We will not know.
Well, if we believe they're humans, then they are. Right. And the truth, like we said, the truth layer is really about the lens of reality. It's the poly market. If everyone in Nepal believes that what's being published on Discord is true, then it is.
Well, see, that's tough for me that you came back around to Nepal in the same sentence as polymarket, because I think the moment you start thinking about elections, and then as I go to say it, it's like elections are bought, right? You know, those with the most money and power. Well, there it is. You just bet on it. Mm-hmm. You bet on it on polymarket, and whoever wins is the truth. And that level of truth, I think, is going to be the evolution of the next 100 years. But
the difference that I think the surface we're just barely scratching is at the underlying all of this goes right back to these supercomputers that we have in our pockets, the devices that are scanning retinas, looking at irises, validating that you are not only you, but you're awake and alive. And therefore you have a vote and a say and the ability to enter the chat. And bots will very obviously not have that ability. However, for the purpose of propaganda, I mean, I was a little bit of a mixed metaphor there, because the Nepalese example is one of actually trying to come to a decision as a consensus, right. A consensus mechanism. What I'm talking about with SOCOM and MISO is straight up trying to make sure that you don't know exactly where it's coming from, except that it's coming from the United States military, the Pentagon, which already, to every American who isn't in the military and every other human in the world, it is already a faceless, 5-pointed institution that just goes around and does things, and the good or bad, and you never know really who it is because it's just a member of the military. It's anonymous by design. So we're playing almost with two things here: the anonymity that SOCOM and MISO, and the way that AI, if used correctly, can further anonymity and further propaganda. But then out of the same other side of our mouth, we're saying yes, but then there is a truth layer, a human layer, a validation and consensus of your ability to say, I, as a single individual on this planet, want this to happen next, whether they're voting on polymarket or whether they're actually voting in an election. It's actually the opposite of anonymity. It's wanting to come forward and say, no, this is about real life, me, the real world asset, me, not the tokenized version of me.
Yeah. And I think that intersection of identity and tokens and content and memes and the things that you publish are going to be where Coinbase is really positioning themselves well. I don't know if you've heard of this Zora token. They've got the Virtuals protocol, and effectively the ability to mint AI agents to pay for little bots that can perform specific tasks that you can train them on. And I think part of their provenance in their creation. Wow, this gets really dystopian again. They're birthing this AI is because you got to put money behind it. You got to pay for it. And that trail gets created, and any value that it generates it doesn't have to have a human owner. I think we've seen those examples kind of play out over the last 12 months of people standing up AI agents with crypto wallets and letting them go and found businesses and file legal paperwork for, Delaware corporations and transact, and the agent coding its own version of Labooblings and making money, real money on chain without the human in the loop. And I think that's going to be, maybe that brings us all the way back around to why I'm experimenting with making sure I'm keeping my own humanity in the cultural loop, which is to say, a week or two ago, a month ago, Labubu's, who cares? I didn't care about it, but I see it enter the chat. I see the memification of it and the attention and maybe the clinging for something purely fun and nonsensical and entertaining to offset all of the evil and darkness on the internet. And what better way to do that than a fun collectible that makes you feel good? That's, again, just tying all these things together of, that's going to be the speed with which humans can create. And there will be those who have the ideas, and then there will be those who execute those ideas using the new, faster, enhanced tools of the internet. Before, if you wanted to go code a website or stand up a Shopify store, it could take you weeks or months. And then you would need a camera to take product photography. Well, guess what? You use Gen AI now. You can generate the product images. You can generate the text. You can generate the code to process it all. So that, I think, will be fascinating to continue watching. I think the stable coin as part of that discussion, you think about Google now getting in on that, from an e-commerce perspective, everything's going to get decentralized. You want to stand up an e-commerce store of whatever it is you want to sell, or your own business, and you need it listed in Google, and you need it authenticated, and you need to know who the people behind it is, or at least who the wallet is behind it, who's funding it. And whether there's proof of humanity there is going to be up to you or your agent to decide. Do you want to transact with them? Are they the type of merchant that I want to shop at? And I think that will also be another big part of this narrative of knowing where you put your money influences, the global economy in some degrees. Like, are you willing to continue shopping at stores that don't support your politics?
Yeah.
And
that landscape too is getting very, very confusing, because as more of these partnerships and more of these deals happen, you aren't aligning yourself anymore in the traditional sense with a single store or a single figurehead. In the old days, people would say, oh, well, it's Jeff Bezos and he owns this periodical and I have an opinion about that, and therefore I will refuse to buy this from Amazon, or whatever the position was. But now if Amazon is in partnership with Microsoft on some component of AI, and Google is now aligning itself with Coinbase, and the Solana blockchain is becoming a new baseline for what used to be called meme tokens and gaming tokens, if that starts to align itself with politicians who happen to have their own interests in both mining and developing AI, and you look at the people who are on boards of directors of companies, and that's another thing where you can see, just even looking at Google, for example, the list of board of directors involves tons of individuals, some of whom are in completely different industries, as they look to bring in that technology, say, to healthcare or into automotive or other places. Even Elon Musk, as a single and very obvious example, is someone who is involved in so many fingers and so many different, pies and irons and so many different fires, that if you were really going to say, I am going to be vegetarian and I'm going to be anti-Musk, like, can you really not eat anything but vegetables? And are you going to literally throw out like 80% of the things that you have in your life because he's actually touched it at some point in the last 15, 20 years? That's something I would leave for you for next week, is we should look at some of the ties. But right now, there is a lot of super obfuscated relationships that are at play. With just that Rotunda example we've used before, who was at inauguration? All of those dudes are working together, at least on one project somewhere. Yeah. The idea of the siloed social networks and everyone not wanting to, quote, share users, that boat sailed. Everyone knows there's a phone in everyone's pocket and it has every app, and people want to be everywhere. They don't want to be in a singular location. Unless, of course, you're in the dark corners of the web and you want to have little little talks on Reddit and not let anybody know about it.
Well, one I just
joke.
sent you, and we can maybe pick this one up again next week, but talk about these partnerships and these obfuscated relationships, something that we talked about, again, more than a year ago, as I go down that narrative of how all this stuff in a bit of a dystopian world starts to, create this interesting play of, do I support brands and all along their pipeline, is there something that I disagree with, and because that affects where you should put your money. Anyway, that whole narrative that we just went down. American Express now offering NFT passport stamps for travelers. So these are ERC 721 non-fungible tokens on the Ethereum Layer 2 base. So again, another announcement from Coinbase. Google, Amex doing travel keepsakes, like digital postcards. Why would they be doing that? Well, because if I have this digital passport that I can go log into Starbucks and I can prove I've been to Peru and I've been to the Starbucks in the airport in Peru, then I want to get the free commemorative cup when I check out at the next Starbucks, right? All those things that we've been talking about, all those partnerships that can be powered by the blockchain, by this decentralized data. NFTs aren't dead. They're going to be called something else, and they will be memes and digital collectibles and content that you post to the internet as tokenized assets.
So the way I look at this is what I'll leave you with, that now what we're saying is that when I fire up Call of Duty, my Call of Duty character skin is going to know through my Microsoft relationship through LinkedIn, who has a validation relationship through Clear at airports, will be yet another, Amex has the NFT passport stamp. Clear will have some NFT badge. So my character in the game will wear the badges of the countries, my tours, where I've been prior. And when you come up on someone who's a multinational travel, SOCOM fighter, you might take a little pause for a second and maybe quake in your boots. A little bit of a real world flex, but in a metaverse, which goes right back to Louis Vuitton handbags, as we walk through the digital mall. It's just different flavors of the same ice cream. I'm really excited for what's next.
Yeah, we'll keep our eyes to the heavens, keep our eyes to the markets, watch all of this movement. We didn't even talk about Trump trying to get rid of quarterly earnings. So maybe we go down the corporate path next time. We'll do it again next week as we start to round out September here. Peace.
Have a good one. I'll talk to you soon.
That's all the time we have for this episode of Off the Record, On the Rocks. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. See you next time for more news and all things crypto and Web3.